So I did a TikTok of this a few days ago, and Mesto actually threw a little fire emoji down. I love seeing that. Let's go. So the song, there's really not a whole lot going on. We have that lead melody, we have the bass, the chords, the drums, and that's really it. And is this song considered feature balance? In my opinion, for sure. One, because Mesto does make feature balance, and two, has that feel, it has that bouncy feel. And all the sounds in this video are from my new pack, Fresh Feature Bounce, which will inspire you to create songs like this and some other feature balance artists as well. And there's also a free demo version as well, so you can try before you buy. But guys, let's dive into it. So this melody is super nice. It has a lot of emotion and it feels like you're having a conversation within a song. And something that you can see here is that the shape of the melody is kind of like a roller coaster. It goes up, back down, stays down for a second, goes back up, and then stays up. So we can kind of tell how the melody is going to make us feel kind of before we even listen to it. And another thing in this is that it uses that 5-6-1 Avicii interval. And if you aren't familiar with that, simply put, we're in the key of D major here. So D is going to be the 1. And then after that, each note in the scale is the 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the B would be the 6, and the A would be the 5, and the D is the 1. And Avicii's signature is that 5-6-1. And a lot of his melodies started off with that 5-6-1, so it makes it really memorable. So this vocal lead, simply put, is just a vocal shot from my Fresh Feature Bounce pack. That's all it is. But the magic is going to come in the processing, and it's not really magic. It's just some basic EQing, which we'll get to in a second. And below that main layer, we have a duplicated layer, and it's just playing an octave lower on the 2 and the 4. And this is just adding a little bit of variation on those just to spice it up a little bit. It's adding a little bit of grit and dirtiness too. So now it's time for that magic processing, which is really simple. And without all the effects, it sounds like this. Sounds really lame and dull, right? But if we turn it on, and I'm not lying here, the two things that make the big difference are these two EQs. So let me turn these off. And all we're doing here is boosting that high end. So on the first EQ, we have a 12 dB boost, 12 dBs, that is a lot. So I would never normally do this, but in this case, it just fit in the mix. And then we're doing something pretty similar in another EQ right here. We're only doing this because the original sample is pretty dark. So we're just adding a lot of brightness, a lot of high in there just to crisp it up a little bit. And then on the entire bus, it's just a little tweaking here and there, a little bit of EQing, a little bit of Valhalla room there. We have a standard low cut EQ right here, and then we're automating a little bit of reverb and a fruity balance, which is the volume. And this volume automation is muting the entire lead, which is going to help with the groove a lot with the drums. And you can hear that it just makes that percussion stand out so much. And these reverses are actually ending the melody. So if you listen, and normally I would use a reverse to go into a melody, but here he's stopping it. And one more thing is the little bit of vibrato here. And all I did for that was inside the sampler, if we go to the envelope setting, go to the pitch, and then automate the amount on this LFO. You just want to use a little bit of that too. Too much is way too exaggerated. There we go. And then that counter melody is going to come in on that second half. And what makes this counter melody great is that it's not interfering with that main melody. It's playing along with it, and it just flows within the entire song. And this is also just the kalimba preset from Fresh Feature Bounce. This bass line is going to give us that classic Mesto feel. It's just one layer doing one job, and that's just to create a really big low end. And the rhythm of the bass line is pretty much just playing along with that melody. So if we play them together real quickly. And if you struggle with like trying to find a rhythm for the bass line, sometimes it's best to start with that first rather than a melody, and it makes it a little easier. And this is the Mesto 9 preset. It's just a B-Sod square wave from the analog section, and then we're controlling the cutoff of that filter with envelope 1, so we're shaping it a little bit because we don't want that high end here. Putting that filter on and opening up a little bit gives us that little bit of bounce. And then there's just a little bit of compression on here, and then that's really it. We just have a little bit of sidechain after that. So probably my favorite part of the song, and kind of the most important, is this bass growl. And this is doing two things. It's making the drop sound really unique, and it's creating a lot of power on that impact. So let me actually mute it real quick. And yes, obviously it sounds completely empty without it, but it just makes that impact so unique. And this is just the Growler number 6 preset from the Serum Bank. Just a nice one-shot growl, and the main thing that's going on here is that we have a spectral wavetable, and this is going to give us a lot of movement in the sound. And then we also have the bend plus and minus here, which is being controlled by the envelope 2. And then we have the position being controlled by LFO 1, but I'm going to make a video that goes a little deeper in all this sound design in the future for these kind of sounds. And one thing I do want to mention is that we did EQ out that low end here because we're going to be getting that low end from the first bass we talked about before. So like I said before, these chords, these drop chords are so melodic. If we actually take a look at this MIDI, you can see that there's just so much going on here. It's not like it's just straight chords. There's like a melody going on within these chords too. And on their own, these sound super nice. First layer is a little staccato cello. And Mesto is always adding that little bit of realness, so he's kind of a big violin guy, and this sounds really good in the entire mix. Next we have the Mesto 4 preset from Silent. It's like a soft saw synth. The main thing here is that this mod envelope is controlling the cutoff. So we're not getting a lot of high end out of this, but we're getting a nice warm sound out of it. And this preset is actually doing the opposite of that. It's a really big detuned layer giving us a lot of the high end. And together they work really well. And the bus compression I have for all of these is some OTT, Camel Crusher, and glue compression. And that is a deadly combo if you're trying to get a nice and thick sound. So these drums, simply put, are just nice and punchy and straight out of the pack. And like I talked about a little bit before, these little percussions, these offbeat percussions, these help so much with the entire groove. And as always, the second half drums are going to be more upbeat. We're going to have those rides, shakers, open hi-hats. So lastly, these effects kind of fall into that ear candy category too. We have a little stacked hay here, which is 3 separate samples. And then the processing is actually beefing it up a lot here. All that compression, EQ, and reverb just kind of make it really big. And there's also a little like weird blip sound in the drop too. And these kind of sound weird in the entire mix, but it sounds cool too. My advice would be to put these on the offbeats and just make sure that the sample is in the key of your song. And then just a little soft exhaust panning left and right. That wraps it up. It's such a melodic, feel-good song, and honestly, it just feels so refreshing to listen to it. And if you liked all the sounds in the video, check them out on my website down below in the description, and I hope everyone watching has an amazing day. Peace out.